Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Black Male Podcast. I'm your host, AP. If this is your first time watching the show live, I appreciate you. Thank you for giving me some of your time. If this is not a live recording that you're watching, thank you for watching it on YouTube. You can like and subscribe. Also tell someone about it. Let's get the word out there. Let's get more people jumping into it, and let's go from there. Think about the shows that are coming up. Today's show is going to be on overthinking. The next show that I'm going to do is going to be on grief. Some things that we deal with, and personally, some things that we go through. We want to know the best way that we can handle those things. So that's what we're going to start with. But today's show is going to be on overthinking. Okay. I'm going to start off with this. Have you ever been in a situation where thinking too much has caused you an issue? Have you ever been in a situation where thinking too much has caused you to have a health issue? Have you ever been in a situation where overthinking has made you react to a situation instead of responding in the way that you should have? A lot of us have been in those situations. I myself personally, the younger version of myself, the first thing someone says something to me or does something to me, I'm going to react to it because that's just the way that I was raised to do those things in the environment that I was in. There was no time to sit back and think. There was also no time to sit back there and wonder if I made the right decision or how this is going to impact me. It was just black and white, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Let's just get it done and go from there. The older you get, you start to realize that when things happen, you have to allow yourself some time to really divulge and really look at a bigger picture of what's going on. And the main thing with knowing what's going on is how does it affect me and the people around me, and how is this going to look for me to be in a different situation, okay? So the thing of overthinking, and when I was thinking about doing this show, is what is one of the main things that causes us problems? What is one of the main things that we contribute and control ourselves that gives us some things that will further hinder us from being in a place that we want to be, as far as living good, feeling good, having the things we want, and just going from there? A lot of it is overthinking, right? So why not talk about that? So that's where we're going to start today, okay? And if this is your first time watching the show, what I like to do is I like to come up with a concept, and I also like to define it, because if you can define something and have an answer for it, then you know where you can go from there. So first, overthinking, okay? By definition, overthinking is also known as rumination. It is the act of repeatedly thinking negatively about something, which can be harmful and make it difficult to focus on anything else. It can also be a symptom of stress, anxiety, or depression, and can contribute to these conditions as well. So I'll say it again. Overthinking, also known as rumination, is the act of repeatedly thinking negatively about something, which can be harmful and make it difficult to focus on anything else. It can also be a symptom of stress, anxiety, or depression, and can contribute to these conditions as well. So already out the gate, it says that thinking of something too much can cause an issue, and it's a negative thing. Have you ever been in a situation where thinking too much has been a positive thing for you? And sometimes we can think about those things that we think about too much that has been very positive for us. Think about it. If we're going into school and we're trying to plan everything out, or how we're going to take a test, or how we're going to prepare for ourselves, or how we're going to, construct our study life, our work balance, and everything like that, we form a schedule that will help us in the long run be able to deal with either taking a class or studying, taking a test, just different ways, different things that we're going to handle that situation, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that everything that we overthink about is going to lead us into something negative. We just highlight the negative. If we highlight the negative, that's the only thing that we can see. But that's not the case in point, okay? There's always going to be a good and bad about everything. There's also going to be a good and bad thing about the concepts that we cover, okay? So you always have to look at both sides of the spectrum when it comes to these concepts and these topics, okay? But let's get into the topic as a way of how we understand it and how we can better understand it, okay? So overthinking, right? Many of us have been in a situation where, or maybe you're currently in a situation where thinking plagues your actions. And when I say thinking plagues your actions, thinking will allow you to have something live rent free in your head, and it will damage your mind, body, soul, emotions, feelings, everything, and cause you to react in an undesired manner. Now, have you ever been around someone and they say, you're going to make me get out my character, you're going to make me cut up, you're going to make me do this? Why? Because taking them to another place is going to lead them to acting on something that they might not be prepared to do. Have you ever been in a situation yourself where you were faced with a difficulty or faced with something right in front of you, or you know something's coming, like a hard thing that you got to do at work, or something personal in your personal life, and you have no one else to count on, and you have to be the one to have the answers for everything. And when having the answers for everything doesn't work out well for you, then you worry about it. It has undue stress. Then you focus on that situation, and you focus and you focus and you focus and you focus, and it doesn't do you any good. And then you wind up doing something or creating a situation for yourself where you're unhappy. And you're going to be unhappy because that was not a positive way for you to go about handling that situation. So it's hard for us to sit here and accept when someone is telling us things like that, because the first thing we're going to say is, how can you tell me something when I'm the one in the situation? We all have been in that situation before, because experience is going to be our greatest teacher. But in the main long run of that is, a lot of things that we do to ourselves teaches us that as well. But with overthinking everything, it hurts us to, and also puts us in a situation where we have to answer in a way that we're not prepared. And we have to deal with things that we're not prepared with dealing with. Okay? Stress. Stress related issues. Okay, what causes me stress? Stress can be the same thing as anxiety. Okay, so they're going to go hand in hand. Stress related anxiety. Okay, what I'm going to eat, if I'm going to pay my bills, am I going to make enough money? Are my kids going to be safe? Is the traffic going to be good? If you live in Houston, you know that the traffic is horrible, so you know exactly what I mean. If my neighbor's going to be okay, I have some of the rudest neighbors ever. They blast their music all the time. They're like no one else is around, right? And that is, if I overthought about that and the things that I want to react to, I will automatically just go bam on their door, and I would be the one in the wrong, as opposed to asking them, hey, can you turn it down on certain times and at certain times of day? I may be sleeping. Anything can be happening, but you have to have that type of relationship with someone built on something, but it's also how you approach that situation. That's it. That could be something that I'm overthinking about, because they randomly do that. And it could be at the most random times that they do it too. And it can be so inconsiderate. Like a lot of people can be inconsiderate of the things that we're going through, because sometimes people use amusement to deflect or defeat tension. And when they do that, it's because they're uncomfortable with some things that either they've thought too much about, or how you're going to respond to something, or how you're going to, accept what I'm going to say to you. That's a part of the overthinking. Another part of the overthinking is what I'm going to do to myself. If I think about something too much for too long, I'm going to get a headache. Have you been in a situation where you got a headache? Probably. Have you been in a situation where you have trouble breathing? Probably. Have you been in a situation where, you were just up and up and up, can't sleep, can't do anything, don't want to eat, don't want to do anything positive for yourself? Probably. Because those are all symptoms and signs of thinking too much about something that you're trying to control. We're human. We want to control every facet of our lives. And with controlling every facet of our lives, that means we have an answer to everything, which means anything that comes my way, I need to know and have an answer for that. And if you bring something to me and I'm sitting and I'm faced with a situation where it's going to be very difficult for me to move forward from, that's going to cause undue pressure on me. A lot of people think that pressure is something that's easy to deal with. And some people deal with pressure a lot differently than others. Some people deal with pressure by taking walks, taking deep breaths, smoking, drinking, whatever, right? Whatever you do to help you deal with that, deal with that. But remember, if I do something and it creates a bigger issue for me than it does a relief for me, then I'm going to have to deal with that as well. Because that's going to also be another symptom of the overthinking. Because if I think too much about something that I can't control, then how am I going to really deal with what I'm faced with? If I'm faced with a tough task, or I'm faced with working with someone or dealing with a certain type of people that I cannot gel with, if I can work on, let's say, in my company, in my department, wherever you work, and there is a funky vibe, and I live with this, meaning I take this on home, I take it out on my kids, I take it on my significant other. You take it out on everybody else. You're dumping it everywhere else because you need a sense of relief from all that pain and that strife and that pressure that's built up on you because you just constantly thinking and you're playing over and over and over the situations that occur. That's rumination. That is what rumination is. It's the same thing as the overthinking. Some people call it one thing, some people call it another thing, but it's the same thing. But if I can't learn or if I don't know how to handle that, it's going to plague me. It's going to plague me in a way that I'm really not prepared to deal with. I may wind up taking medication for it because I may lead myself to, heart problems. I may have undue stress that I can't deal with on or manage on a day-to-day basis. I may wind up very depressed about it because it can put me down a cycle and a road that I'm not ready for. Because I keep putting in my head that things should be a certain way, things aren't that way, I need to try to control it, or I need to have some sense of acceptance and sensibility about what's happening or occurring around me, to me, and for me. And if I don't have that, then that's gonna bother me. It's going to bother me to the point to where I don't know what to do. It's also going to bother me to the point where I'm going to make excuses for my behavior. And that's not something that we typically want to do, but it's something that we do anyway. Because we can get in that spot. And for instance, someone can bring something to me. And it depends on who that person is, how I'm going to take it. We know that automatically. Depends on who's bringing something to you is how you're going to take it. We know that about each other, right? You know that about yourself. I know that about myself. The main thing is when they bring it to me, how they approach me, what the situation is, and how I'm going to navigate around it. And if that situation is something I feel like can be handled right then and there, then of course I'm going to answer it. I'm going to handle it. Things will be done. But if it's something that it's going to take me time to where I have to take a step back, I have to fully give myself an opportunistic time to really focus on and deal with what has just happened to me or what was just brought to me. If I don't give myself that time and I'm thinking about it too much, it's going to be an issue. So, who overthinks all the time? You can't say it's men or women because we all do. We all overthink because it's going to affect us in different ways. And the reason why it affects us in different ways is because we're different type of people. And if we weren't those different type of people, we wouldn't have the type of situations or things that occur right now. But I really feel that some people will bring certain things to other people based on their rapport with them or their relationship with them and also what they feel they can get away with. And if they feel like they can get away with certain things, they'll do it hands down. Won't even care, won't bat an eye, won't do anything. And you'll be just sitting there pissed off, upset, and frustrated at the situation or even the person that brought it to you because you feel like they shouldn't have done it. But they did it anyway. Because that overthinking is going to cause that vicious cycle that allows me to keep spinning and spinning and spinning, and until I spin out of control, because these negative thoughts are going to continue to build. And if I keep thinking about negative thoughts that are building about the situation that's at hand, how do I feel about myself and how I'm dealing with it? I'm not going to be happy with myself, because I'm going to blame myself for allowing certain things to occur. I'm also going to blame myself for letting that person either get the best of me or letting that person get to me in a way I wasn't prepared to deal with. And sometimes we give people the benefit of the doubt based on who they are. Sometimes we give jobs the benefit of the doubt because we work there. Sometimes we give the relationship the benefit of the doubt based on how much time we've invested in these people that we're with, right? But everything requires solicit and solemn time for me to understand this situation, where it is, and where I need to go. But if I can't master the idea of not overthinking about something, it's going to hurt me. Eventually, I'm going to be upset with myself. And I'm going to be upset with that person too, as I just said, right? It's going to cause a lot of worry. I'm going to be not focused on the main thing. And the main thing is going to be what's going to allow me to be at my happiest place with the most peace and the most success, right? So what causes overthinking, right? Overthinking can stem from various sources, things we fear, like making a mistake. It can be stress. Some people like to be perfect. Some people have emotional trauma. Some people have a lot of things that lead them to be overthinkers. So I want you to take a little bit of time while I'm talking. I really want you to divulge and think about the time or a situation where you have overthought about something. I'll give you one of mine, but I want you to really think about a time you've really overthought about something, and you worried and you worried and you stressed, and it just gives you a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. I want you to think about that. Okay? And while you're thinking about that, I'll tell you about mine. Okay? A lot of times that we have situations, right, in our lives, we worry about, our children. If you have kids, you'll worry about that, right? You're going to worry about your kids no matter what, because they're your children, right? Okay. What about your job? You're going to worry about your job because you want to make sure you're doing your best at all times, right? What if the two are intermeshed with each other? Meaning, what if the two are basically giving me the same thing and I have no way to get around it? So I'll tell you about a situation that I have, or that I had, okay, because I don't currently have it, okay? I was a person in my younger days that if things didn't go the way that I felt they should go, I would think about it and think about it and think about it. And the reason why I would think about it is, the first thing I would say to myself is, I can't believe this shit has just happened. I can't believe I'm faced with this right now. But now that I'm faced with it, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to get myself out of this situation or to navigate through this situation so I can have a positive result? Now, it could be anything, right? So, my situation was about school, okay? Back in college, right? They're overthinking about either schoolwork or your personal life will put you right in the spot where I'm about to tell you. So there was a time that I took tests, and I didn't particularly like to take tests, right? If you ask me something, I'll be able to tell you. But I had to learn there's a way to take tests in order to master them. There wasn't something I was told. I mean, you can ask me a question like I just said, and I'll ramble off the answer to you. But, a lot of tests that we take, they're made to trick you. They're made to make you answer in a way that's not correct, to trick you, like as I just said, which to me, I feel like is BS, and that's not a real way of teaching someone to master or understand a subject. So, I'm thinking. I had this one class, thinking, trying to get this done, right? It's a science class, right? And to which later on, once I learned how to take tests, I started mastering it. It was easy, right? So, go and talk to the professor. In college, you really don't have an opportunity to talk to the professor. You're lucky if you can because you'll talk to the teacher's assistants, right? Okay. So I talked to them, right? And I didn't know they had a testing center where you can actually talk to someone about some test anxiety. Never knew about that. But I was told about that from the professor. So I said, okay, let me try that. Okay. Went and talked to them, and they gave me some insight of how to take the test in a more profound way that will lead to better success for you. The first thing they said was, if you get to the test and you start panicking, take a deep breath. The second thing you may want to do is, depending if it's a time test, to read the questions first and answer the ones that you know first. Okay, everybody was taught that. But when you have so much weighing on you answering or getting a certain grade, then that's going to lead to you either panicking or you worrying, right? So he told me that, and I said, okay, so how many people do you see in your office that have this problem? Is it because of the way you're teaching, or is it because of the actual subject matter? The first thing they said was, a lot of people get in these classes and they think they have to be perfect with the test that they take. You don't have to be a perfect test taker. As long as you know the basis of the subject, you'll be able to take the test and pass it without a problem. So I sat back and thought about that, and I said, well, that kind of makes sense. But I want to know, when I'm looking at this paper and I'm focused on answering this question, and I'm reading this question, I go down and I see a question 5 questions later, and I see it's similar to that other question, I'm going to go back and forth between these two questions, especially if it's multiple choice, and wonder if I made the right decision, or wonder if I made the right answer, right? And then while I'm going through, after I have time to really check my answers, I may change it. But you know, they say you never go from the first answer. They say once you put it down, that's the answer you should choose. Whether it's a 50-50 anyway if you don't know. Okay? So, went and talked to them, found out everybody has test anxiety, never knew that was a term, never knew that was anything, that was something that was brought to me. I said, okay, now I know what to do. Friday came 2 days later. Time for a test. Been worrying about this test all freaking week. All week worrying about this test, right? Get down there, learn the test, get to it, pass it. First thing I did was take a deep breath when I saw it. I followed everything that this person that worked in that testing center told me. That's their job. That was their job, to tell people how to take tests. And I didn't even know that they had that in universities. Because who's going to tell you that? They're not going to tell you that. Most people, they're gonna wait for you to be in a bad situation or when you're failing and then offer that to you. But I just want to know, does everybody have this problem with this, right? But see, when you ask questions and you format them in the manner in which you want a certain desire or a certain desired response, then you're gonna get the answer that you're looking for. I'm sure if I didn't ask that question in the manner in which I asked it, I would have got a completely different answer. But I asked it in an informative way because he don't know that I was struggling with this and worrying about this test, and that I had heard from other people that have taken this class how hard this one particular test was. It wasn't a midterm. It was the last test before the final, right? The last test before the final. So midterms and finals, people go haywire for that, right? But it was a test before that. It was a test to see where you were based on everything that he taught throughout the entire course. And you know, if you don't have time to really study and do anything, if you're a college athlete, that's another thing. But we'll get into that some other time. But he told me how to take the test. And when I went back and I took that test, I passed it. And that way I knew what I was doing. See, if I allowed my fear of taking those tests, or even what I heard about that particular test in that particular class, which was not an easy class, then I would have allowed myself to fail. I'm setting myself up to fail. But that would have caused a big situation for me. What if I couldn't get back in that class? What if that class determined if I kept my scholarship or not? There's a lot of things that would have weighed on that if I got a bad grade. Because a grade point average, it's a scale. If you do good in one, you do bad in another, it's an average. But you have to do good in every one, even if you have a low grade, so that everything balances out. That's my own personal story. That thing really punched me in my face. But once I learned how to do that, that further helped me down the road taking every other test. Because the first thing I did was I looked at everything first. And if I didn't know how to do that, how to handle that, how to take a deep breath, not worry about certain things, but to move forward in a manner to which I knew I was going to be successful, then yeah, or have a desired result, then I would have failed tremendously. I would have did bad. And how many people in that class that took that same test were probably feeling the same thing that I felt, but weren't able to communicate that either to the professor, the TA, or the person at the testing center, because they probably didn't know that it was there. They didn't know they had that option. How many of us have had an option that we didn't know was there until it was revealed to us, and then we can have a sigh of relief because we've been worrying so much about something. We're going to talk about spiritual and religious people, too, that do that. And the spiritual and religious people have a foundation of something that says they have to have faith, right? The faith the size of a mustard seed, right? And it's easy to say when it's not me going through something. I said that earlier. It's easy for me to tell someone how to deal with something if, number one, I've never been through it, or I think I have all the answers to everything. Sometimes some people who offer their advice need to humble themselves as well, because their turn is coming right around the corner. And it's going to test them how well they believe the words that they're saying. 100%. Now, if they don't believe the words that they're saying, then they're going to be eating crow, because it's going to force them to, because they're going to be back in that situation. But now that I've told you about my situation that I had in college, you think about your situation that I asked you to think about. Has there been a time where you've overthought about something that has worried you and plagued you and weighed you down and kept you up at night? Some people could be in their finances. Right now, money is everywhere. People are doing their best to work, get money, have just the basic things they need, right? Some people work 2 and 3 jobs. Some people are working not nine. There's no such thing as a 9 to 5. You're trying to get a work-life balance, but you spend more time sleeping than working, because you have to make sure certain things that you're in charge of, they're hitting. You want to make sure they're taken care of. And especially if I have a plan to either go on a trip, or I'm planning on being somewhere at a certain point down the road, in my life. Some of us will put New Year's resolutions. When you were younger, you'll say, oh, my New Year's resolution is to do X, Y, and Z, right? And I worry about it. But then the first time it don't work out and I'm worrying about it and it don't happen, what do I do then? Do I just close up the shop and say, oh, well, I tried and that was it? Or do I try to find another creative way that is going to help me with that? A lot of us will just tank the ship and just say, you know what, it didn't work. Blame me if you want, and that's it, right? But when we really want something, how much time and effort do we focus on that? When we want something or a specific desired manner, what do we do to get that? How committed are we to doing certain things, right? But with that commitment, we will overthink. We will put ourselves in a situation of wondering what we're doing is right. If wondering if I say the right thing. If wondering how do I present myself in a manner that I'm going to be accepted and respected. Okay? Let's talk about jobs. Let's talk about your job. Let's talk about your job and being accepted. Some folks go to their work and they do a damn good job, right? Everyone wants to know that they're doing a damn good job. That's one thing you have to pride yourself on. If you go to work every day, you do a good job, then I don't need nobody to tell me I'm doing a good job. I know I do. That's not the way to go about it. Because if someone's going to give you some credit for the things that you're doing, there's nothing wrong with saying thank you. I appreciate that, right? Because you are focused on something down the road that can potentially propel you to a different level, right? My main thing is if you dominate your level, you can elevate, right? But you can't do it if I'm worried about something and it's not working out for me. The first time I get slapped in the face doesn't mean that means I take everything, right? That doesn't mean that I worry too much about it. That means I become strategic in the way that I move, the way that I think, and the way that I align myself with some of the things that I'm looking forward to. If I can do that, then I'll have desired results. And even if I don't get to that desired result in the time and the manner that I wish that I did, then ultimately I'm going to get there. And once I get there, then I'll be happy. Your happiness is number one, right? You can't be happy if you're overthinking about something, right? Especially about money, especially about work, especially if you have coworkers that are not the best and they don't have the same work ethic that you do, or they don't come to work with the same energy you do. We have to understand, sometimes we just have to let things be. Some things are not our fight to fight. Sometimes we carry on a lot of excess baggage for nothing. Someone told me about this one time, right? Imagine walking down the block, right? And you have a backpack and it's full of bricks, right? How heavy? As soon as I said bricks, you can imagine how heavy that would be. Someone might have said, how many bricks do you have in it? It doesn't matter. The idea is a brick is going to weigh more than a book or something else. So let's say you have 5 bricks in this backpack, right? And you're walking in a straight line, right? And you're walking for a while. Eventually that backpack's going to get heavy. I'm going to start sweating. My legs going to get a little heavier. I'm going to start leaning forward a little bit to try to help myself carry this load, right? I'm going to start thinking about, man, I can't wait to get this off my back. But I'm still moving. I'm still treading, right? Until I start thinking about, I got something in here that I can take out of there. If I take out one brick at a time, my load gets easier. I can begin to stand up straight. I can begin to walk a little lighter, a little easier, more brisk, right? I can feel a breeze. I'm just not sweating coming down my face, right? My neck doesn't hurt as much. My back isn't hurting as much. My lower back isn't killing me. My feet aren't barking. As they say, my dogs are barking. I have something that's giving me sudden relief. How many of us have been in a situation where we have a book bag full of bricks and we are just waiting to unload them? When we overthink some things, that is what it is. It's the same as having a backpack full of bricks that we need to take out one at a time and deal with. Because some of us don't know how to handle one situation or the other. Some of us have situations that come twofold. Some of us have situations where they come one after the other, after the other, after the other, right? And we wonder how we're going to face that and what we're going to do to fix that, right? So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with overthinking, right? So I'm going to tell you what they say. There's a couple ways that you can deal with that, right? So in my research, it says there's 8 key ways or strategies to help you from overthinking, okay? The first one says take deep breaths, okay? It's the same thing that person told me. Take a deep breath and attack it the way you should, right? Take deep breaths, close your eyes, and breathe in and out slowly, okay? Okay, 2, find a distraction, right? Distractions help you forget about what's troubling you. What's a positive distraction? We think of the distraction as something that's negative. See, a lot of things that we've been taught have negative connotations, right? A lot of things we've been taught has negative connotations, okay? Yeah, I like this one. Look at the big picture, right? The big picture means if I have something that's going to affect 5 people, my response to how I answer something or how I deal with it is going to affect these 5 people in 5 different ways. Now, they may get and receive my result, but they each are going to receive it in a different manner based on who they are and based on who they are to me. But I need to know that. That's good. I like that one, okay? Acknowledge your success. I have to give myself credit for the work that I do. I also have to give myself credit for even taking the time. See, this is where I get on that. I need to take time for myself. Because someone can want to be around you, but sometimes it's good to be by yourself. Because sometimes you need to center yourself to be good in order to do that so you can be good for other people. Have you ever heard of someone say that as soon as I get home, I have to have 10 or 15 minutes to take off the stress of the day or work before I can talk to my family? I've heard people say that before. Okay? It's a fact. Okay? Embrace your fear. There's not a lot of people that's out there that want to embrace their fear. Matter of fact, they run from them. And they will continually run from them because they are not equipped to handle or deal with the pitfalls or success of having fear. See, a lot of us have been taught that fear is a negative thing. Fear is a good thing to have because if you don't have fear, you can't have success. If you don't have fear, you cannot have, there's no triumph without the trial. It doesn't work that way, right? But I have to embrace it. If I can name it, I can accept it, I can deal with it, I can embrace it, I can move on from it. Because I'm going to learn something from this experience that's going to help me the next time something comes along that's just like this, or maybe something else that's going to help me down the road, okay? Start journaling. A lot of people don't journal, right? Journaling is good. Sometimes I got to get what I feel out on paper because if I can see it right then and there, I can address it. I can attack it. I'm putting something down there. But if I put it down there, that was bothering me. But go back to it. This is where I was at this time when I was thinking about a certain thing. Okay, now I see how I progress from that. For progressing from that in my day-to-day thing, then I go from there. A lot of people think journaling is a bad. Journaling is not a bad thing. What do you think writers do? They journal all the time. They have the biggest amount of writer's block there is. People who write all the time, they do. They journal. Most successful people, they journal. Why? Because they have to have an account of their day. Why? Because they've learned something about themselves. Instead of overthinking about something, at least if I can put it on paper, when I have to come back to it, I can address it in the manner in which I need to. Okay? You got to live in the moment. That's number 7. Live in the moment. We want to live for the future so much that we will do any and everything to get there. Right? I have to worry about getting to school. I have to worry about getting this particular job. I have to worry about having X, Y, and Z. When sometimes we are the reasons why we're in a situation right now because we have created a situation for ourselves that we can't get out of. And it's all self-made. Sometimes some situations aren't from someone else. It's the condition in which we put ourselves in. And if we don't know how to live in the moment and accept the trial, because a triumph is going to come along, because we want to live just for I ain't got no problems, everything's good. You can't have life without problems. You're not living. It doesn't work that way. You have to have one or the other. They work in tandem. That's like a peak and a valley. If anyone's lived by mountains, there's a peak of the mountain and there's valleys. Everyone knows that you can't have one without the other. You're going to have your ups and downs. Got to live in the moment. You got to embrace it. But with embracing it, this is what I feel that means. I need to accept where I am, appreciate where I am, but know that it's not going to last for a long time. Why? Because I'm not going to worry about things that I cannot control. And if I can control myself in the way that I think, that's going to help me be able to deal with certain things that's going to come along that I got to address and I got to answer to and have an answer for. It's easy for us to be reactive in a lot of situations. It's also easy for us to listen to others and have their 2 cents or their input on something when either they're no expert on subject matter or they're no expert on certain things, but we trust them. We lean on them because we want to think about too much, because we want to throw some ideas off of someone, right? Because that's a part of anxiety that we all have. But a lot of people don't want to want to admit that they do, but we do. That's a naturalistic thing, right? It's a neurological event we all have, right? The last thing of the 8, it says ask for help. So I'm going to tell you something about me. I don't ask for help, okay? I know that as a strength, and that's also a weakness, but I know that about myself. The reason why I don't ask for help, and it's different of asking for help and depending on help, right? My idea when it says ask for help, it's like asking for some guidance, right? Asking for someone to give you something that would either help you through or help you with that current situation. I went and asked for help. I did. About that test. I did. If I was too much on myself to worry about what I looked like and what it felt like to go and ask that question, then I would have failed. The reason why I would have failed was I would have been too much on myself to really think about this is more than about me. If all these other people have felt this way and have taken this class and they say, what class are you taking? Oh, I got this class, and they look like this and they worry, that happens. For those of us that have taken college classes or any class in high school that have been very difficult or have been said to be difficult because of a particular teacher of the subject matter, that's an absolute worry. You think about the first time you went in college, you wanted to do the best you could. You wanted to succeed. Why? You probably had a lot of pressure on yourself to be a success. What if you were the first person to go to college in your family and you had to have that on your back? Or you were a parent and you were going to college so you can prepare, you can make a way for your children or your family. That's a lot of undue pressure that we put on ourselves. And that will cause us to think in the moment, but it will also cause us to look forward and look way ahead to something that we can't control because we ruminate on some things that don't pay rent to live in our head. The only thing that pays to live that pays to keep in your head is the knowledge you acquire. Okay? Because that lives rent free. But a situation and a connotation about something like that should not be in there because it's going to cloud your judgment. It's also going to cloud your clear, concise thoughts. Because if I'm clear and concise in my thoughts, my actions are going to follow in the same manner. They're going to. Spoken like any other poet, like any other writer that they can put out there. If so as a man thinketh, he does. And I know some of you have probably heard that before, but that is the truth. So if I think about something too much and I think that I'm not capable of attaining or achieving that, what am I going to say about myself? Well, I tried, but it didn't work out. It didn't work out because you didn't give yourself the opportunity to make it work. Okay? Final thought. Final thought is this. Okay? We overthink, right? We make it to certain places, certain things, right? Overthinking can disrupt our ability to make a better way for ourselves, right? It can create a situation to where we try to navigate, we try to deal with, we try to handle certain situations that we know we can, but at this moment in time, it's difficult for us to because we don't have the plan. If you fail to plan it, you will panic. But if you don't panic when you plan it, you will be successful. And I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you for watching the show today. If you watch it live, I appreciate you giving me your time. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much. Please get the word out, like and subscribe. I'll have the next show next week. It's going to be on grief because we all deal with it. Okay? This is AP for the Black Male Podcast. And as always, be good to yourself and be good to others. Peace.